This lecture is about using a time series as context to potentially discover causal topics in text. In this lecture, we're going to continue discussing contextual text mining. In particular, we're going to look at the time series as a context for analyzing text to potentially discover causal topics. As usual, let's start with the motivation. In this case, we hope to use text mining to understand a time series. Here what you are seeing is Dow Jones Industrial Average stock price curves, and you see a sudden drop here, right? So one would be interested in knowing what might have caused the stock market crash. Well, if you know the background, and you might be able to figure it out if you look at the timestamp, or there are other data that can help us figure it out. But the question here is, can we get some clues about this from the companion news stream? And we have a lot of news data that are generated during that period. So if you do that, we might actually discover the crash actually happened at the time of September 11 attack. And that's a time when there is a sudden rise of the topic about the September 11 attack in news articles. Here's another scenario where we want to analyze the presidential election. And this is the time series data from a presidential prediction market. For example, Iowa electronic market would have stocks for each candidate. And if you believe one candidate will win, then you tend to buy the stock for that candidate, causing the price of that candidate to increase. So that's a nice way to actually do survey of people's opinions about these candidates. Now, suppose you see a sudden drop of price for one candidate. You might also want to know what might have caused the sudden drop. Or in social science study, you might be interested in knowing what mattered in this election, what issues really mattered to people. Now, again, in this case, we can look at the companion news stream and ask the question, are there any clues in the news stream that might provide insight about this? So, for example, we might discover the mention of tax cut has been increasing since that point. So maybe that's related to the drop of the price. So all these cases are special cases of a general problem of joint analysis of text and time series data to discover causal topics. The input in this case is a time series plus text data that are produced in the same time period, the companion text stream. And this is different from the standard topic models where we have just a text collection. And again, that's why we say time series here serves as context. Now, the output that we want to generate is the topics whose coverage in the text stream has strong correlations with the time series. For example, whenever the topic is mentioned, the price tends to go down, etc. Now, we call these topics causal topics. Of course, they are not strictly speaking causal topics, so we are never going to be able to verify whether they are causal or there's a true causal relationship here. That's why we put causal in quotation marks. But at least they are correlated topics that might potentially explain the cause, and humans can certainly further analyze such topics to understand the issue better. And the output would contain topics just like in topic modeling, but we hope these topics are not just regular topics. These topics certainly don't have to explain the data the best in text, but rather they have to explain the data in the text, meaning that they have to represent the meaningful topics in text, semantically coherent topics, but also, more importantly, they should be correlated with the external time series that's given as a context. So to understand how we solve this problem, let's first just to solve the problem with a regular topic model, for example, PLSA, and we can apply this to text streams. And with some extension like a CPLSA or contextual PLSA, then we can discover these topics in the collection and also discover their coverage over time. So one simple solution is to choose the topics from this set that have the strongest correlation with the external time series. But this approach is not going to be very good. Why? Because we are restricted to the topics that were discovered by PLSA or LDA. And that means the choice of topics will be very limited. And we know these models try to maximize the likelihood of the text data. So those topics tend to be the major topics that explain the text data well. And they are not necessarily correlated with time series. Even if we get the best one, the most correlated the topics might still not be so interesting from causal perspective. So here in this work site here, a better approach was proposed, and this approach is called iterative causal topic modeling. The idea is to do an iterative adjustment of topics discovered by topic models using time series to induce a prior. So here's an illustration of how this works. Take the text stream as input. We're going to apply regular topic modeling to generate a number of topics, let's say 4 topics shown here. And then we're going to use the external time series to assess which topic is more causally related or correlated with the external time series. So we can certainly rank them. And we might figure out that topic 1 and topic 4 are more correlated and topic 2 and topic 3 are not. Now we could have stopped here, and that would be just like the simple approach that I talked about earlier. Right? Then we can get these topics and call them causal topics. But as I also explained, these topics are unlikely very good because they are general topics that explain the whole text collection. They are not necessarily the best topics that are correlated with our time series. So what we can do in this approach is to further zoom into word level. And we're going to look into each word in the top ranked word list for each topic. Let's say we take topic 1 as the target to examine. We know topic 1 is correlated with the time series, or is at least the best that we could get from this set of topics so far. And we're going to look at the words in this topic, the top words. And if the topic is correlated with the time series, there must be some words that are highly correlated with the time series. So here, for example, we might discover W1 and W3 are positively correlated with time series, but W2 and W4 are negatively correlated. So as a topic, and it's not good to mix these words with different correlations. So we can then further separate these words. We are going to get all the red words that indicate positive correlations, W1 and W3, and we're going to also get another subtopic, if you want, that represents the negatively correlated words, W2 and W4. Now, these subtopics or these variations of topics based on the correlation analysis are topics that are still quite related to the original topic, topic 1, but they are already deviating because of the use of time series information to bias the selection of words. So they, in some sense, well, we should expect so, they're in some sense more correlated with the time series than the original topic 1, because the topic 1 has mixed words. Here we separate them. So each of these 2 subtopics can be expected to be better correlated with time series. However, they may not be so coherent semantically. So the idea here is to go back to topic model by using these each as a prior to further guide the topic modeling. And that's to say, we ask our topic models to now discover topics that are very similar to each of these 2 subtopics. And this will cause a bias toward more correlated topics with a time series. Of course, then we can apply topic models to get another generation of topics, and that can be further ranked based on the time series to select the highly correlated topics. Then we can further analyze the component words in the topic and then try to analyze word level correlation. And then get even more correlated subtopics that can be further fed into the process as prior to drive the topic model discovery. So this whole process is just a heuristic way of optimizing causality and coherence, and that's our ultimate goal, right? So here you see the pure topic models will be very good at maximizing topical coherence. The topicals will be all meaningful. If we only use causality test or correlation measure, then we might get a set of words that are strongly correlated with time series, but they may not necessarily mean anything. They might not be semantically connected. So that would be at the other extreme on the top. Now the ideal is to get a causal topic that's scored high both in topical coherence and also causal relation. And this approach can be regarded as an alternate way to maximize both dimensions. So when we apply the topic models, we're maximizing the coherence. But when we decompose the topic model words into sets of words that are very strongly correlated with time series, we select the most strongly correlated words with the time series. We are pushing the model back to the causal dimension to make it better in causal scoring. And then when we apply the selected words as prior to guide the topic modeling, we again go back to optimize the coherence, because topic models will ensure the next generation of topics to be coherent. And we can iteratively then optimize in this way as shown on this picture. So the only, I think, component that you haven't seen in such a framework is how to measure the causality, because the rest is just topic modeling. So let's have a little bit discussion of that. So here we show that, let's say we have a topic about government response here, and then with topic model, we can get the coverage of the topic over time. So we have a time series X sub t. Now we also are given a time series that represents external information. It's a non-text time series Y sub t. Let's say stock prices. Now the question here is, does xt cause yt? Or in other words, we want to measure the causality relation between the two, or maybe just measure the correlation of the two. Now there are many measures that we can use in this framework. For example, Pearson correlation is a commonly used measure, and we can consider time lag here so that we can try to capture causal relation using somewhat the past data, using the data in the past to try to correlate that with the data on points on Y that represent the future, for example. And by introducing such a lag, we can hopefully capture some causal relation by even using correlation measures like Pearson correlation. But a commonly used measure for causality here is Granger causality test. And the idea of this test is actually quite simple. Basically, you're going to have an autoregressive model to use the history information of Y to predict itself. And this is the best we could do without any other information. So we're going to build such a model. And then we're going to add some history information of X into such a model to see if we can improve the prediction of Y. If we can do that with statistical significant difference, then we just say X has some causal influence on Y, or otherwise we wouldn't have caused the improvement of prediction of Y. If on the other hand the difference is insignificant, and that would mean X does not really have a causal relation with Y. And so that's the basic idea. Now we don't have time to explain this in detail, so you could read this cited reference here to know more about this measure. It's a very frequently used measure and has very many applications. So next, let's look at some sample results generated by this approach. And here the data is New York Times, and in the time period of June 2000 through December of 2011. And here the time series we used is stock prices of two companies, American Airlines and Apple. And the goal here is to see if we inject some time series bias or time series context, whether we can actually get topics that are biased toward this time series. Imagine if we don't use any input, we don't use any context, then the topics from New York Times discovered by PLSA would be, just general topics that people talk about in news, right? Those are major topics in the news event. But here you see these topics are indeed biased toward each time series. In particular, if you look at the underlined words here in the American Airlines result, and you see airlines, airport, air, United Trade, terrorism, etc. So it clearly has topics and that are more correlated with the external time series. On the right side, you see some of the topics are clearly related to Apple, right? So you can see computer technology, software, internet, web, etc. So that just means the time series has effectively served as a context to bias the discovery of topics. From another perspective, these results help us what people have talked about in each case. So in the or not just what people have talked about, but what are some topics that might be correlated with their stock prices. And so these topics can serve as a starting point for people to further look into the issues and to find the true causal relations. Here are some other results from analyzing presidential election time series. And the time series data here is from Iowa electronic market, and that's a prediction market. And the data is the same, New York Times, from May 2000 to October 2000. That's for 2000 presidential campaign election. Now, what you see here are the top 3 words in significant topics from New York Times. And if you look at these topics, and they are indeed quite related to the campaign. Actually, here the issues are very much related to the important issues of this presidential election. Now here I should mention that the text data has been filtered by using only the articles that mention these candidate names. So it's a subset of these news articles, very different from the previous experiment. But the results here clearly show that the approach can uncover some important issues in that presidential election. So tax cut, oil energy, abortion, and gun control are all known to be important issues in that presidential election. And that was supported by some literature in political science. And also that was discussed in Wikipedia. Right. So basically the results show that the approach can effectively discover possibly causal topics based on the time series data. So there are 2 suggested readings here. One is the paper about this iterative topic modeling with time series feedback, where you can find more details about how this approach works. And the second one is a reading about the granular causality test. So in the end, let's summarize the discussion of text-based prediction. Now, text-based prediction is generally very useful for big data applications that involve text, because it can help us infer new knowledge about the world, and the knowledge can go beyond what's discussed in the text. As a result, it can also support optimizing of our decision making, and this has widespread applications. Text data is often combined with non-text data for prediction, because for this purpose, the prediction purpose, we generally would like to combine non-text data and text data together, get as much clue as possible for prediction. And so as a result, joint analysis of text and non-text is very necessary, and it's also very useful. Now when we analyze text data together with non-text data, we can see they can help each other. So non-text data provide a context for mining text data, and we discussed a number of techniques for contextual text mining. And on the other hand, text data can also help interpret the patterns discovered from non-text data, and this is called a pattern annotation. And in general, this is a very active research topic, and there are still new papers being published, and there are also many open challenges that have to be solved.